Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IRSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Friday, December 27th. Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year to everyone. We are coming up on the new year. We just had Christmas. Jamie and I talked about it. We had good Christmases, right? Everything went off
Christmas,
like we wanted. I am feeling better. My voice is returning. So that's great news. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everyone. We're going to be talking about a little football game that's coming up on January 1st, Notre Dame, Georgia, at 5:45 Pacific, 8:45 Eastern time in New Orleans, Louisiana, in the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame will be taking on Georgia with the right to go on to the semifinals of the college football playoff. We'll talk about that. Notre Dame's had some portal additions since we last spoke to everyone. Malachi Fields, wide receiver from Virginia, Will Pauling, wide receiver from Wisconsin, and Ty Washington, tight end from Arkansas, which is an interesting one in the annals of Notre Dame portal additions. That's an interesting one, but we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about the Notre Dame Georgia game and all the things that come up in the chat. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So wherever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And this show is brought to you, as always, by ESQ Clothing. The secret ISD sale lives on through January 1st. 27% off if you use code ISD at esqclothing.com. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches, whether they're playing, they're wearing the bamboo dress shirts, they're nice jackets, sport jackets. So you can check all that out at esqclothing.com. The sale is not eligible for gift cards. So head over to esqclothing.com, use ISD to get 27% off of all online items. Coach Hump says happy belated Boxing Day to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Coach Hump.
That's nice. Coach Hump says he's giving credit to Matt Freeman. It's not something we like to do on the show, but we're going to do it. Anyway, I guess it's the giving season. I think Matt Freeman was right on top of it regarding the game next week. I think Georgia is going to try out Notre Dame on Notre Dame, I think is what it is, and talking about using 12 personnel and things of that nature. I guess real quickly, Jamie, we just talked about it. We're going to get into the portal stuff first, but just kind of, you said, your impression so far of the game at this point is it's going to be really close, like, touch and go, 50-50 type game, toss up type game. That's where your head's at. I think which team is going to struggle more with the losses that they have, right? Is Georgia going to struggle more with the fact that Carson Beck's not playing? They got to play a backup quarterback. Is Notre Dame going to struggle more with the loss of Riley Mills and the cumulative losses that have taken place along Notre Dame's defensive line? Which team can mitigate those losses the most, figure to have a good advantage in this game? How do you see it, with about a week to go here?
Yeah, I think it is going to be about how, they handle the losses, and what other guys kind of like step up, kind of what version of Georgia shows up, because obviously it's so weird to say, they won the SEC, but as many people know, the SEC wasn't good this year. Yeah, I mean,
right.
That's why they didn't get more teams in. Like the top teams weren't as good as they normally are. So I think that how they come to play and where they're at, but also like how they play with a different quarterback, because obviously when you have Carson Beck, you got the whole playbook at your disposal. And it's not to say that they won't add in some of the stuff with like quarterback run game or whatever. Yeah, they could do certainly more of that with Gunnar Stockton, but he's had 60 something dropbacks in his career. And one of the things too that they didn't really get this year compared to a lot of other years, they didn't win in a lot of, they blew so many teams out over the last 3 years that they would have so many backups who ended up playing like 150, to 200 snaps, because they would just have 20 snaps at the end of each game for these guys to just go in and mop up. And they haven't had that. So he didn't really get even those kind of reps as much to really, um, gain kind of game experience. Like he played the second half of Texas, but anyone who watched that game, and it's like he played all right, but like all right is just about it. And they were like super limiting with him. 3.3 yards average depth of target. Like they weren't taking any chances. They weren't taking any chances. Like they just threw everything short. And so it's one of those things where it's like, wow, his completion percentage looked good, but it was like they gained nothing. And they really didn't do anything. They just knew it was close and they didn't have to take chances. So they didn't. Right. So I think a lot of the game is going to be dictated on if Georgia can kind of impose their will and run the football and try to like control clock and do that kind of thing with, 12 personnel, their backs, they're trying to run play action, all that kind of stuff. If they can move the ball like that and get into the kind of game where they don't feel like it's tight the whole game or they have a lead, they don't have to feel like we have to take chances. That's perfect for them, right? Like that's what they want. But Notre Dame, if they can get up on Georgia and get a lead, that's going to be something where Georgia's going to have to kind of loosen things up and do things maybe that they hadn't planned for, or maybe I'm sure they've planned for it, but like that they prefer not to do,
right.
Because let's be honest, if they actually felt really confident in this kid before it, they would have attacked more against Texas. They would have done that stuff. So it's not to say that they, he's had more practice time. He's had all that. So he's going to get that. But like, it's just not a situation where he walked in and put it this way. I don't think the offense, other than the quarterback run game, I don't think the offense changes that much with Steve Angeli in the game, for if he steps in. It's not like, well, they have to do this. It's like, no, Steve Angeli's throwing the ball down the field, right? Like he's going to do these things. So I think it's a different situation for them, or at least from what they've showed. So it's going to be about whether or not they can like play that certain conservative game and feel comfortable with it. And it'll be about like whether or not like Notre Dame can, score enough points against their defense, which is it's still good. They're 11th in DF plus, but they got 3 projected first round picks on it. But you would think with a defense, Georgia, with all the guys they recruit, 3 projected first round picks, a bunch of other NFL dudes all over the thing. Why aren't they the best defense in the country? Like why are they not top 5? Like it's kind of baffling.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the way Georgia was in that second half with Stockton was they were like first down to first down, like calling plays to achieve a first down rather than calling plays to try to move the ball. Right. And there is a difference. We're trying to get the ball down the field rather than like we're trying to get to the next first down kind of thing. And there's a difference there. Now, I think they'll be a little bit more wide open because it's one thing to go a half that way. It's another thing to go a whole game that way. If they are going to scheme things, find out what he's comfortable with and try to move the ball a little bit more. But if they get a couple of points on the board, the good thing about it is I do think that if they were to get up big, not I want to say big, if they were to get up a couple of scores on Notre Dame, then they would close up shop and basically try to hang in there for as long as they could. So like I don't really see them extending away from Notre Dame and that kind of situation. So the game, I don't know that we'll ever truly get away from Notre Dame in this one.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, which is a good thing, right? Anytime you go into a game like that. And I don't necessarily think that would be the case the other way around, right? I think Notre Dame would still continue to be aggressive should they get up a couple of scores at any point in this game. I do think that, Marcus Freeman, he likes to say football, not fitball. And I think that that's true for Georgia in this case as well. And I think something that Notre Dame is dealing with in this game rather than I think the other way around with Georgia is Notre Dame does have to get the monkey off their back here when beating a team like this, right? And I think that if I was looking at this game, I would say without any sort of prior knowledge of previous years, past history with any team, and I was just looking at the way Notre Dame played this year and the way Georgia played this year, I would say Notre Dame's been a better football team over the
Oh yeah,
balance of the season. Or they just have to,
not
right?
close, I don't think.
Right. But there is history. There is a coach over there that knows how to perform in these situations. They are going to be in New Orleans. It is going to be in a dome. That place is going to be rocking. And Notre Dame has to get over hump in this one. Notre Dame was a better football team than Ohio State last year. And they played in a way where it's like it was available for them to lose, and they went and lost the game, right? Like they have had opportunities against the upper echelon of college football and been very close and come up short against not this Georgia team, of course. And the 2017 game is getting further and further away, but I think it's still kind of a factor. And the 19 game is a factor. The Kirby Smart was there. A lot of the coaching staff was still there, right? In terms of being able to win games like this, when like Georgia should not have beaten Texas. They should not have beaten Texas the first time. They should not have beaten Texas second time, right? They frankly should not have beaten Georgia Tech. And I've talked about ref intervention and all those other things, but like they did do the things that they had to do to win the game. They could have lost that game a number of times. Georgia is a team that knows how to win when maybe you shouldn't. And Notre Dame has been a team that has found a loss when maybe you should win, right? That's something they need to get over. They need to get over it, and this is a good situation for Notre Dame to do that. Again, that's not a prediction. I just think it's something that is a factor in this game that it exists for Notre Dame that doesn't exist the other way for Georgia. So
here's where I'm going to fight back against that, because I just think that kind of thing, that stuff, 2017, 2019, whatever, like these guys weren't on the team. The coaches weren't there.
That's just true.
They weren't there. So I'm not saying that there was the thing with obviously the Ohio State game, but you could say, oh, Notre Dame was the better team that day for most of the game, but they weren't a better team than Ohio State. They weren't better than them. They weren't.
Notre Dame was ready to beat them.
They were ready to beat them, and they didn't, for sure.
Right. Notre Dame was ready to beat Oklahoma State, and they didn't.
Sure. That is so far removed.
I'm not saying
that's fan talk, man. That is absolutely not.
The point is, listen. We say this. We said it before the Fiesta Bowl. What happened in 05 and 06 and all those other years had nothing to do with the 21 Fiesta Bowl. That's what we said, right? We said it. And Notre Dame was up big, found a way to lose the game. I'm just saying. Stuff like
that's in your head. That is in all these people in the chat's head. Whatever.
It's not in my head.
That is, but I'm just telling you, that is not within. That's not what Riley Leonard is. Riley Leonard is not thinking about Fiesta Bowl, man. Like they're not thinking about those situations. They're not. And I'm not. I 100% agree with you that people should not count out because Georgia wasn't good this year that they won't win a tight game. That's all they've done the whole year, pretty much, is show resiliency. And like they've been down a bunch the whole year, right? And I think people really, if they're not taking that into account, you're doing it a disservice. You're not absolutely thinking that, because Notre Dame could be up by 10 in the fourth quarter, and fair enough, it's not the same quarterback. So it's like, a little bit different if it's Beck rather than Stockton if they're down by 10 in the fourth quarter. I think that is definitely true. At the same time, that is not like something that Notre Dame isn't thinking about, that kind of thing. That is like total fan think. Everybody's thinking of that. Like they're thinking of, hey, we want. They're thinking of, guess what? When we went to Texas A&M, fourth quarter, we won the game. We went, hey, we're playing USC. They're driving us to score. Pick six, and then another pick six. That's what they're thinking. And if they lose the game or not, whatever, that means Georgia beat them. It's got nothing to do with any of that other stuff before this year. Nothing. And it's not something too where even if you think about the Ohio State game last year, the guy who 100% could have ended the game, DJ Brown, he's not on the team anymore. Like the guys, even if you look at guys who were in a lot of these games from earlier in the year, they're not even it's not the same people expected to do it. It's all different. So whether they win or lose, what kind of game plan they had, whatever, like all that kind of stuff, that's ghosts of the past that has nothing to do with the current team or whatever. Because I got to tell you too, like I played on a team in high school that was like they had won a bunch of championships before that I started playing there. But I never ever thought like, man, we're winning this championship because those other teams won. It's like got nothing to do with my team. Like that's got nothing to do with this string. Every game is a different game. It's like, they say the one life, one play. That's 100% how it is with most things. It's a total fan thing to just everybody just latches onto this. And I understand because it's happened so many times for Notre Dame fans and they get it. And it's like something that has really haunted Notre Dame fans for decades. And I totally understand that, but can't analyze a game like that because that's not how the players think. That's not how the coaches think. Guaranteed.
It's not a game analyzation. It isn't. It's a factor. We live in the world. We live in the world. Like we live in the world. We live in the world.
That is, but that's your world, not the players' world.
No, I'm saying it's a factor in the world. Now, look, I'm not saying they can't overcome it. Who said they can't overcome it?
That's a narrative thing after the game.
What do you mean?
After the game, that's what people are going to say because that's what like people on like
I'm not going to say after this game. I am not going to say after this game if Notre Dame loses, they lost because of the ghosts of the past. That's not what I'm going to do.
There will be people who say that. Do you agree that there will be people who say
we are having a conversation. I'm not talking. I'm not going to straw man people after the fact. I am saying that going into this game, it matters in a way that because the other way works. Georgia always wins this game. They always find a way to win the game that they have to, that is an elimination game, or they very often do. They believe in a way because of the way that they've performed in the past that they are going to get this done. Now, I'm not saying Notre Dame doesn't believe it. I'm not saying that. Okay, I'm not saying they don't believe that, but you do have to do it. You do have to do it. That's all I'm saying. You do have to do it.
That's fair enough.
It has to get done, and it has to get done in a way that it hasn't been done in the past. That's it. Let's talk about the portal now. Let's talk about the portal, then we'll come back to this game. Notre Dame adds so Malachi Fields, I think, was the first one who came up, and I think his name had been out there for a little bit. Malachi Fields out of Virginia. I think of all the wideouts, I think he's the one that makes the most sense in terms of team need and what Notre Dame needs on their football team. 6'4", 220. He is a very good athlete. Like to me, I don't know if you actually made this comparison. I think it was the Chase Claypool.
Yeah, kind of like I compared it to him. Yeah,
Chase Claypool type of athlete. I mean, the way he moves around is just a bit different than he is a better athlete than Bo Collins, in my opinion. Like I think he's faster
and bigger.
Yeah, all those things. 55 catches this year, 108 yards. Not a drops guy, right? Let me see if I can get this contested catches situation here. 10 contested catches this year for him on 23 attempts, about a little less than 50%. And that can be now, like people point out, like quarterback play, that could be a situation where the quarterback's not putting the ball exactly where he should be. So I think the contested catch piece is where a quarterback play might playing a factor. Notre Dame does not have anyone on the roster that kind of fits this body type and fits what you want to do with a boundary receiver. How big a deal you think it is that Malachi Fields is going to be joining the Notre Dame football team in 2025?
I think it's huge because it's exactly what you said in terms of like he was exactly kind of what they needed. Like they needed that boundary, and I just, in my opinion, based on like who was available there weren't a lot of like obvious guys there, just specifically boundary guys that fit there that they also like, knew and would definitely have a shot at and all that kind of stuff. Right. So it's like he was definitely in the top of the list, like a guy that you heard his name and then you heard Uyeyama Manor, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously, if he was whatever, but he's going to the Senior Bowl, he's going to go in the draft, whatever, right? So he wasn't going to transfer somewhere. He's decided he's going to go in the NFL draft from there. But if it would have been between those guys that you would have think, hey, these are the guys that I think like would be the best fits, and they played against them, so they've scouted them, they've known them, whatever. Right? There's all that. He has like he was Feldman's freaks list. He 38 for 10-8 broad jump. He's hit 22 miles per hour on the GPS. He is a big, fast athlete, really good ball skills. I think would agree with some of the stuff with, I think quarterback definitely plays a part with some of the stuff too, because if the contested catches, it's like, it's one of those stats that like, I think it is a good thing to have, that PFF tracks that, right? Like that is a good thing to have, but they're not all the same, right? Because it's like, if you're jumping up over top of a guy, or it's like, this isn't double coverage and, there's like another guy coming over the top of you and whatever, or if there's like, the ball was just badly thrown and you're trying to make a play, like who's tracking it exactly what that. So I think there's a little bit there, but I will say that he kind of reminds me what I said about him was that he reminds me of Claypool before his big breakout senior year, right? Where you're like, this guy has you see these flashes that are just amazing. It's just that if Claypool would have went to like Virginia, he would have been getting all the targets before, right? Like just like Fields did. But Claypool had to like kind of earn his way up at Notre Dame, and before he was even the boundary, because Boykin was a better boundary than him at the time, the year before. So and then Claypool moved to the boundary and he took his game to just a higher level. He was just so much more confident, and he played. It was the first time that he really like played to his size fully. Like there was highlight clips of him blocking people and putting them on the ground and all that kind of stuff, which was great. But he never quite like dominated like a big guy should, right? Yeah. So that's what I want. I think the thing with Fields is like, you're going to get a guy. I think he's going to beat, he's going to be, definitely like an above average boundary receiver. That's what you're going to get. That's a pretty good thing to have, but I do think there is he's got another level that he could possibly get to, that is better than the player that he was at Virginia too. So I think from that perspective, kind of like where the floor is, he's obviously a high floor player, but I think the ceiling is still higher there too. It's not even, out of the question that he can, really take it another level. And I see that, this Beast in 88 says Claypool was soft, even softer in the NFL. He wasn't soft in 2019.
He wasn't soft in 2019.
He was not. He did not play like that. He played at a different level, and his confidence level was at a different thing. And it was kind of like, believe me too, I'm a Steelers fan. I know he played different in whenever his rookie year in Pittsburgh than he did the other years. That was like a thing. And then all of a sudden, when he started to get more attention on him, and like just not off the field, but more attention onto him on the field, and it was like, well, now things are getting tougher. He didn't have that same level of confidence. He didn't take it to another level and do the little things that he needed to do to reach it. And so, like, yeah, you can say that at Steelers, he didn't high point the ball well at Steelers. Go watch the 2019 highlights, man. He was like jumping over dudes and making incredible catches. He was
15 of 26 on contested catches.
Yeah, he was phenomenal.
Over 50% in 2019. Yeah. He was a beast at Notre Dame in 2019. For Fields, 113 catches, 1,619 yards in the last 2 seasons, 10 touchdowns. That's really good. That's really good production. And like I said, he's not a big drop guy. He's only had he had 6 drops in 2023, which is a 9% drop percentage, which isn't terrible. Only 2 last year, 3.5% drop percentage, which is very, very good, right? 2 drops over the course of a season. You're targeted over 100 times. So that's important, right? And that's a big deal for what they want. And again, you get that kind of athlete in the building. That's a big one. Will Pauling, the other wide receiver from Wisconsin. Yeah, it's interesting. Like last year, Will Pauling, 42 catches. Let me just bring this up here. 42 catches, 407 yards. You're talking about under 10 yards per reception for a wide receiver, 3 touchdowns. In 2023, 73 catches, 834 yards, 6 touchdowns, 11 points. So a much different player in 2023 than in 2024. What is there anything on that? I mean, there is a drop problem, in my opinion.
He had a big drop problems this year.
I think it was. Let me find him here. It's 9 drops this year. 18% drop percentage, which is not good. The previous year he had 7, so 16 drops over the last 2 seasons, which is not what you want. We've had a lot of people question, like, is he going to be? I think people are confused about where Jordan Faison plays. I think people see him as like a Faison replacement.
I think people just see Faison small and they just he plays in the slot.
Yeah, he's been playing the field for Notre Dame, so he's a field player. So to me, Pauling is going to be a slot guy with Greathouse, which is interesting to me, right? How do you feel about this pickup for Notre Dame? I mean, look, another one, right? 1,200 yards receiving over the last 2 seasons and about, 115 catches. So you're bringing in a lot of catches, right? Over 100, and I think it was 118, 115 between Pauling and Fields over the last 2 years. What do you think about this particular pickup as it relates to like someone like Jaden Harrison, right? Who is a slot guy. Like obviously he's much more accomplished than Harrison, the receiver, was coming out of Marshall. How do you feel about Pauling coming in as a wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is kind of like he is essentially a Harrison replacement, and just we're talking about just the roster in terms of the slot. But unlike Harrison, his production is way greater. I mean, you had a guy who had 74 catches in 1 season in the Big Ten. That's a lot. He essentially over the last 2 years has been Wisconsin's #1 target, and Fields was #1 this year for Virginia. He was kind of like 1B last year, right? Because they had Malik Washington. But I think the drop thing is, that obviously isn't good. He had the highest percentage of power forward drop percentage. That's not good, right? But the previous year, he was just like middle of the pack. I mean, I'm saying he's not like super reliable, but if you look at like kind of where his numbers are, there's a lot of guys. Most of the guys with the heaviest drops are slot guys. And a lot of it is like traffic and dealing with some of that stuff too. But if you watch a lot of him this year and where his drops, a lot of his drops were like plays that he should have made. They're like concentration ones where it's like he's thinking about making a play after the catch or he's doing whatever. Like they were just easy balls, but he made still like a lot of difficult catches. So it's not like he doesn't have skills or anything like that. It's just that he's just had like a bad case of it, like dropping ones that he shouldn't have. And then the other thing is too is that like he was playing injured most of the year. He missed a couple games. But I think it's like it is like a good thing if you think about it. Like so many guys are hurt. Everybody's hurt at the end of the year. You have to have guys who play hurt. Like that is football, right? So you have to have guys that are willing to kind of go there and like kind of put their team above it. And obviously, like Wisconsin didn't have a good year, and he's still like out there, like going out and playing. So I think it's a little bit of like Jordan Clark, where Jordan Clark was like playing banged up, and people were like, "Yeah, yeah, he wasn't that great." It's like, no, he's pretty good. He was playing hurt the whole year.
He definitely has like the physical traits, right? Like he. I mean, look, and the other part is like they've thrown him the ball over 180 times.
Yeah.
Over 190 times over the last like 2 years. I mean, that's a lot of passes, like that's the same thing with Malachi Fields. It's like almost over 200 passes. Like, so, they're definitely like, he's a huge part of it. That's another part where it's like, man, I hope these guys aren't thinking they're going to get like 80 balls.
Oh yeah. I mean, but I think though, like, I think those guys, well, Fields,
I mean, they pretty clearly know what they're signing up for, right? I mean,
yes, you would have to. You would have to know that you're going here, and it's like about you're not going to get the same number of targets. Like that is not happening. But it's not really about that. It's about like, kind of getting better and producing when you get your chances, then also like winning and doing this. Because think about all these games right now where it's like all of a sudden people who didn't know about like believe it or not, there are some people who probably watched that Indiana game and didn't know like really much about Jeremiah Love. And then they're like, holy Jeremiah Love, like that happens. Right. So it's about like getting to play on like a bigger stage and doing that and all that. And I think too, it helps. It'd be one different thing if there's like, they're just adding this guy and it's whatever, but it's like, he played for Mike Brown. First of all, recruited by Mike Brown to Cincinnati, came over with Mike Brown and, Luke Fickell to Wisconsin and had that monster year under Mike Brown, right? So obviously that's someone that he likes and feels comfortable with. That's obviously someone that Brown likes. So I think that's a different thing too about having that kind of relationship there where, maybe if he isn't the number one guy or whatever, you're kind of telling him like he should have a relationship with him where he kind of understands what the heck's going on. But also too, like he's another guy that just like Fields, was on the freaks list. Like he's a freaky athlete, 4.39 40, 4.03 short shuttle, 36 vert, 600-pound squat. Guy's 5'10", 190, 600-pound squat. Like there's probably some old linemen on Notre Dame that aren't 600-pound squat. Like that is legit. Like pound for pound, there's probably not too many guys in college football who are as strong as him. So it's just another guy too that if you look at it, we're with him and Fields, as they both have a chance to be NFL guys. And that's really too what you want to bring in. You want guys that are like, hey, this guy can play in the league. This guy has traits that he could play at the next level. This guy has traits that if we go and against, Georgia, they could be as good or a better athlete than the guys that they're playing against Georgia. That's what you want. So I really think they kind of, considering with these guys as kind of grad transfers, which you normally don't get, like obviously the highest quality guys, or you're going to get guys like Chris Mitchell. And I don't mean this as shade at Chris Mitchell, but just like guys that have had a ton of production at a lower level and that they're going to try to jump up to a higher level. It's pretty rare that you're going to get guys that went to Power 4 schools were like wide receiver 1 on their team. Yeah. And they're both coming to you as grad transfers. Like that's pretty rare.
Yeah. I to be clear, like these are better pickups than like Collins and
way better. Yeah.
Mitchell last year, right? Because Mitchell had good numbers, but he did FIU. And Malachi Fields has over 100 catches, right? Like coming in, like Bo Collins didn't have that, right? Like Malachi Fields has been a better player in the ACC than Bo Collins was,
Yes.
which isn't shade on anyone. It's just a fact.
Just that.
So these are, and from especially from like a trait standpoint, like you said, it's big and important. Rajon asked about wide receivers leaving Notre Dame. The only one I kind of feel comfortable speculating about is Deion Colzie, mostly because when Fields posted his photo, he was wearing 0, and that's what Deion Colzie wears. So I think Deion Colzie's graduating, right? It would make sense.
Yeah, he's graduated
I
already.
kind of wonder if Colzie will even get into the portal, or if he just
Might just
graduates
move on,
and tries to get a job somewhere. Like I could see that. I could see that. Here we go. I want to talk about this MV Irish thing later. One last player, Ty Washington, tight end from Arkansas. Kind of interesting, right? It's his 3rd year, but I believe he's graduating in the spring. So people are calling him an undergrad, but he's going to graduate. I think he's on track to graduate from Arkansas. So I think he will eventually be a grad transfer to Notre Dame. If he's not around in the spring. And also, I believe he has 2 years left. Do I have that right?
Yeah, he's got 2 years left.
Yeah, he has got 2 years left. And I think that fact makes a lot more sense to me, bringing him on. Because for him, it's like, I imagine like he probably feels like he can compete for a starting role, or at least that second tight end in the in 12 personnel. Someone mentioned Holden Stays is in the portal. And it's like I think he's kind of similar to Holden Stays in terms of skill set. I think Stays is probably bigger, but and just in terms of his skill set, like he doesn't have that size. But I think he's a good mover. I think he moves around really well. As like a who he reminded me of body wise was Isaiah Likely from from the Ravens.
Yeah.
He kind of when I saw him, I was like, oh, he reminds me of Isaiah Likely. So on that front, I think, and we talked about this, like Notre Dame did need tight end depth, just because I think Bauman is out of the program. Mitch Evans is going to be out of the program. So
Davis Sherwood's
out of the program. So they needed bodies to come in and play. The fact that he has 2 years left is very helpful. It's a big benefit. So, he was kicked off the team because he didn't want to go into the game. I can't remember which game it was, but he had been dealing with some personal stuff. He wasn't in a very good headspace, and they removed him from the team. I think this is someone that Mike Denbrock knows. Marcus Freeman would not bring in a player to his program that he felt like was going to be a character concern. So I personally don't have any hangups with that whole situation, but kind of any thoughts on Ty Washington adding to the class here?
Yeah, I think, 100% what you said there about the character concerns. I wouldn't really, I don't think it's an actual concern at all, right? Because he's never had anything that was like off the field or anything that was there. Obviously, there was the situation, his grandmother was in hospice care, and there was things going on in his life. And it's, something that when you do more look into like kind of like what happened and people around the program, and or people who've covered him and all that too, like they're like, he's a good kid. It's not like this isn't a thing. It's much different than that San Francisco 49ers linebacker who just was like, nah, I ain't playing. Like that was a total thing where that guy just lost his starting job and didn't want to play. So it's a very different thing. I think he is the perfect kind of guy that you look at as like, he's started some games for, Arkansas, had 7 for 90 versus Ole Miss with 2 touchdowns. Like guy had to be, he's at least like done stuff against like good competition. And he's like an adequate blocker with a chance to be better. Like I definitely see him as more of like an H-back than traditional inline. But he's a guy. I don't think he's by any means is like a liability or anything, or just like a big wide receiver. He is a traditional tight end. So I think when you're looking at where they're at in terms of the transition, I mean, I would find it really not likely that he's going to beat out Eli Raritan and Cooper Flanagan for those top 2 tight end spots. One, those guys have both been really good this year, specifically blocking. Like they put them in as blockers now. Like they're the top 2 blocking tight ends on the team, and they've been really, really good there. And also those guys have like more to give to in receiving. So I would find it hard if maybe it's possible, but not probable that he's going to come in and beat those guys. But certainly when you're looking at like
players
that
get hurt.
third tight end, exactly. All it takes is like one injury, and they would have been. That's exactly why they need to get him.
Yeah,
one injury, and they are in big trouble. All of a sudden, it's like, can we even run like 12 personnel the way that we want to here? Like, because you're really then all of a sudden relying on, James Flanagan to come in as a true freshman. You're relying on Jack Larson to come in and like be, maybe something that he's not. I don't know where Jack Larson is in his development. I was like a fan of Jack Larson and think that he's got a chance to be a pretty good player, but I don't know. I haven't heard enough to say like, this is where he's at in the program. He's definitely going to be this or whatever. So right now with Washington, that's 5 scholarship tight ends. That's not a lot for Notre Dame, right? That's like all of a sudden, especially when sometimes you're doing 13 personnel, like 1 or 2 injuries, and you're like, wow, we're in trouble here, right? So you don't want to limit kind of what you can do and what you want to be in a certain week, or certain things, goal line stuff, short yardage stuff that you want to do. So, which is why when you think about it, like losing those 3 tight ends, like it would have been probably good if they could have got a second tight end in the class. But even if they got a second tight end in this class right now, that still doesn't really like help them for what they would need for next year. And Washington helps more with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to limit what you can do with your tight end room or your media company. You don't want to have any limits on that. And so if you need a media company that's going to place no limits on what you can do with your social media page or your website, or you're a highlight reel, whatever it might be, then go with VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior, and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. All right. Envy Irish says, you guys catch the Cover 3 pod, and those clowns are advocating for Georgia to hurt Leonard. Did you hear this?
I did not hear it. I mean, I don't, to be fair, I don't listen to any of the other national podcasts. I only I get all my info from the Cord. The Cord tells me what's going on.
So basically,
yeah.
I believe it was Fornelli who began the conversation.
He prefaced it.
Well, he prefaced it by saying, like, look, we're just a bunch of guys sitting here talking, right? That was what he said. We're just a bunch of guys sitting here talking, right? And he is like, I don't want them, but he was basically the gist of the conversation was Georgia's got to like try to hurt Riley Leonard, right? And he was like, the way I took it was like, they got to go hit him. And they were like, look, if you got to take a couple roughing the passer penalties, then you do that, but you have got to hit their quarterback. And you have got that he alluded to kind of being like borderline with it. You got to be borderline. They weren't saying like, please dive at his knee or anything like that. It was just
okay. That's different context. Yeah.
Jamie, you've played a football game, right? I've played a football game. I know how these conversations go in the locker room when you're playing a quarterback who is physical, who wants to run around, who kind of depends on his physicality, right? Yeah. You know how this goes. Like, to me, this was a nothing practical conversation.
It was like a nothing burger
To me. Right. And look, people can
It
take it
sounds like a nothing burger to me
to
now
me, it
that
was
you
just
put
like, look,
context on
to
it.
me,
Yeah.
it was like, look, they got it. And look, Georgia is saying this. You know, Georgia is saying this. We are going to hit him. We are going to hit him late-ish. Like, you have to do that. It is a physical game. It is a game about physicality. It is a game about will. It's going to be, people keep saying it's going to be a rock fight. In the rock fight, like, hit him when he slides, send in the goons, right? Like they did. Like he did say, send in the goons. Like, to me, I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't. Because I know what he's trying to say. I know what he's trying to say. They're going to hit him. They're going to Envy Irish says he plays worse when injured. Yeah. Like, look what happened against NIU. He hurt his shoulder and they went and lost to a MAC team. Like, yes, that is the point. Like, I did not think anything of it. I truly did not.
I don't think, okay, first of all, not only do I not only think anything of it, I think that is actually like a relevant conversation because every team who plays Notre Dame this year, everyone from the beginning to now, if they weren't saying, hey, we got to like, any team that plays a quarterback who is a running quarterback, they say, every time you get a chance, punish him, right? And obviously there's different, in terms of being like borderline or whatever, like, and I'm not saying that they're Georgia saying that or whatever. And that part of the thing, okay, maybe they don't need to say stuff like, hey, hit him while he's like sliding or whatever. That to me is stupid, but whatever. It's not like a huge deal, but whatever. But look at that. Look at the Indiana game. Like, that hit, that was whatever. Like, that was with purpose. Like, he was trying to make a statement there. That kid, right, Carpenter, who hit him.
Right.
And it cost him 15 yards or whatever. Right. But he was going to do it because that was the mentality of it, right? And I mean, I said the same thing when they played Army. Daly was like, hey, I want to be physical. I want to be like, he's like Captain America, square jaw, I'm running downhill and whatever. And I was like, they need to beat the crap out of him. Like, they need to hit him every single time because it does impact what, how he's playing. And by the end of that game, even though he's still like, kudos to the guy for like picking himself off the ground or whatever. But like, if you think that it didn't have an impact on him, then you didn't watch the game. It absolutely had an impact on him. Yeah. So them saying that you got to hit Ryan Leonard, saying to injure someone is different. Like, that, I think is.
I don't know. I don't know that he actually used the word injure. When I was listening to this, and this was, I don't know, was it yesterday? I was listening to this. Like, look at, to me, I listened to it, and I was like, okay, I see what they're saying. Sure. I know what they're trying to say. Like, maybe Iris says, how about say make him feel your presence, let him know you're. Yeah, maybe, right? Like, maybe that's a better way to put it. But I know what they're trying to tell us.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Don't you think this is the exact same thing that Notre Dame is thinking with Gunnar Stockton?
Yes.
Like, they're absolutely thinking like, oh, Gunnar, you want to run that hard up the middle again? Please do that. So we can just rock the crap out of you. And, maybe we're going to get, true freshman Ryan Puglisi is going to come out and replace you. So it's like, yeah, that is, if you're not thinking that way, then you've never played football. First of all, it's a violent game, guys. Just breaking news, football. It's a violent game, collision sport. Yes, Terry Kelly, he was concussed on that play. He absolutely was concussed on that play. And I'm not advocating for someone to hit him high or whatever, but if you think a guy is going to run over and not slide and do that, and you're going to like take it easy on him. That is not what's going to happen, especially when you know that guy is the next guy is the third stringer, right? So that's just kind of, you know, what it is. It's like you want to punish guys. It's just like anything. If someone has like, if I'm playing Boise State, here's another thing. It's not a quarterback thing. I'm playing Boise State every single time with Ashton Jonty, full body weight on every single time. Get in there. Second guy, you know, they call it JOP, jumping on the pile, right? Get in those JOPs. Get him. Make him feel extra thing. This guy's going to carry the ball 30 times. Like, I don't want him to make it to 30, right? Because if he's any kind of fresh, he might break it for 70, right? So that's the mentality. That's the mentality when you're going against great players and like guys who are super important to somebody, right? So I don't think there's, you know, in what how you've kind of, you know, translated to me, it doesn't really sound offside at all.
I knew it. I knew what they were trying to say.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want anyone diving into anyone's knees. I don't want anyone.
No, I don't. None of that. None of
like,
that.
No one wants that stuff, right? Like, and I think people kind of understand that. Like, no one's asking for someone to dive at a knee.
No one wants dirty stuff.
Yeah, like, but borderline, right? Like, go hit him. If maybe you take that half step, make them call it, right? It's kind of like a make them call roughing the passer. Make them call it. So that's kind of where that is. Clontarf, chances of Jagusaw starting, 0%.
Yeah, I don't really.
You
said he was just.
You're not gonna start him. You're not gonna start him at like tackle. You can't take out Anthony Knapp. You're not gonna start him at guard. Like, you're better playing Pendleton than you are playing Jagusaw. He hasn't been practicing.
I don't even know if he'd be the next man in, if they would be winner. I think it's probably highly doubtful. It's a lot to ask a guy who just came back to do it, even if you think he's the best guy. Like, it's just like basically like, you know, hey, go into the gladiator arena right away and just jump right in when you haven't been, you've never done any of this for the whole time. It's not a thing that is easy, which is okay. I mean, please, people, stop with the, hey, what about Jagusaw to D-tackle? Get out of here with these. No one needs to ever say these kind of things ever again. Just because Jerry Tillery did it when he was, by the way, that they saw him in high school and then we're like, yeah, we're going to.
Well, I mean, he practiced there. He didn't play left tackle and then they put him in the, you know.
No, exactly, right? But I'm just saying, but I'm talking about like, there were people who were like, Riley Mills is down. What about Jagusaw? Like, it's insulting to the game of football that anyone thinks you can just all of a sudden just like, hey, switch to that other side of the ball or whatever. It's hard enough going from like right guard to left guard. Some people can't do it. That is the thing. Some people can't do it. But you're going to go, first of all, you got to do all these things, not just like know the defense and know the plays and whatever, but technique and all this kind of stuff and all these other things.
Ask Indiana what one bad run fit will do.
Exactly. It is like this. It's like the, you know, and I was going to say no shade. There is shade. There is shade. Don't suggest it anymore, people, because don't do it. Don't do it. We don't need that anymore. If it's an off-season thing and you want to talk about it, hey, talk away, even though it's very unrealistic that kind of stuff happens. But if it's off-season, you know, having fun with it, hey, go ahead. But when you're talking about like this kind of stuff, the game, like, no.
Beast in 88 says, I'm worried Georgia is going to ram the ball down Notre Dame's throats. Notre Dame doesn't stop the run great. Here's the thing. Georgia hasn't been a great running team this year. Georgia, so Notre Dame is 23rd, I think, in 10-plus yard runs. Georgia is 80th. In 20-plus yard runs, Notre Dame is 10th. Georgia is, I want to say, 114th. They're in the 100s. They don't run the ball well. They don't run the ball very well at all. Their running backs are averaging, excuse me, their running backs are averaging 5.1 and 4.9 yards per carry on the season. You know, they don't have great missed tackles force numbers. I mean, basically as many as like Riley Leonard has. They don't have, like I said, they don't have that much 10+ yard runs. They've run for 1,680 yards on the season. They've run for 200 plus once, and that was against UMass, and it was 208. They're just not a great running team, you know, and look, this is where a lot of people say, you know, Gunnar Stockton is better he's definitely better for their running game, right? In terms of like, it's good that he's going to play in a game where Riley Mills is out, right? Because then it gives them a better chance to do the thing that they need to do to succeed with Gunnar Stockton, right? They need to be able to run the ball with him, with Trevor Etienne and Nate Frazier, right? They need to be able to run the ball with those guys, but they haven't been a great running team this year. So, you know, everyone kind of immediately said, "Oh, Georgia." Like, I think people think Georgia and you know what they are and what they've tried to be, and it's like, oh, they're going to ram the ball. They haven't been able to do that against anyone, you know. So I just
not as they have in other years for sure.
Yeah. Tyler Borgman says, "What are you guys' thoughts on Notre Dame trying to run more on the perimeter on offense?"
I saw somebody say like the key will be like running on the perimeter against Georgia, which to be honest, I don't know. I don't think that's the way to be like, hey, we got to get out and let these like freak athlete safeties just come down. I wouldn't be my strategy to run at them, to do it that way. I think that what Georgia wants to do, what every team wants to do, but definitely Georgia, this is like a core philosophy for Kirby Smart and Glenn Truman, is like, it was one of the reasons why they have like 330-pound dudes up front. They want that. They want to stop the run with its least amount of bodies possible.
Yeah.
So that means that there are going to be opportunities to kind of run it inside against them if you can block those guys.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be less bodies inside. So that is something to kind of make note of, that, you know, you got to be able to do it. And I think one of the things is they just haven't been, watching them this year, they're just not like a super disciplined as they usually are. Usually they're so on point, like with Georgia. And that's what just makes them always so scary, is that you're like, they got so many athletes and they just like don't make mistakes. They don't have busts. They don't like miss a lot of tackles. They just are like a really good, fundamentally strong defense. And they just haven't been at that same level this year. And, you know, and they've had spurts of it where they've done it. But like, okay, here's a perfect example. So Texas, one of the things they wanted to do against Texas, they were like, hey, we're going to play up to throw to the perimeter. And they did, and they couldn't get anything because they have just athletes that they can do it. So I don't think that is the recipe to do it, is like run outside. I mean, not to say that like Love or Price could bounce something if they get leverage and create something. Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be like about balance and about doing things to like, you know, breaking something, or like, hey, they are selling out a bit. Can you break something now? Right. When they are selling out to stop and do some of these things, and which Notre Dame has always done this year. They've always, when teams overplay it, maybe they have some, you know, struggles with it, but then eventually something breaks. And the other thing is that quarterbacks have run dual threat quarterbacks, ton of success against Georgia this year, like a ton of success. Milrow, obviously, Haynes King. Haynes King just with like a legendary loss, numbers and a loss, like incredible numbers. Haynes King, season high 114 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Miller, 117 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, right? Jackson Dart, who's not like he can run, but he's not like a true dual threat. He had 50 yards and 7 carries. Right? There's gonna be opportunities there. And that's another thing too. If you're gonna try to stop the run with less bodies, well, then that means you have less bodies there to play the quarterback. So, and then if they over adjust to that, you have to kind of counter that.
Couple things I want to flag. People are asking in the chat, like, what's Notre Dame going to try to do? I think we're going to see some, like, RPO slot fade stuff. I think we're going to see some slot fades. I think we're going to see some back shoulder fades because you got to get the ball down the field and you don't want to stand back there and read the field out with these D tackles, right? So, like, you want to get the ball out, but you also got to get the ball down the field. Like, it's hard to move the ball methodically against Georgia like they've done against some other teams. So that's one thing. Second thing is, like, I think Eli Raridan's ready to have, like, whatever a big game is for a Notre Dame receiver tight end guy. Like, I was watching him against Indiana. I was like, Eli Raridan's ready to be a meaningful player, right? It's something that I think is ready to happen. And like, I don't know, like, what Mitchell Evans has done to kind of take that away from him, I guess is one way to put it. Like, I just think give Eli Raridan a chance. He's big. He's moving well. He's blocking a lot better than he has in the past. I think he's kind of ready to go on that front. And then, I think we're going to see like a ton of like screen game, whether it be to Faison or Great House or Love or whoever it might be for Notre Dame on offense. Like, I think we're going to see slot fades. I think we're going to see back shoulder throws. Hopefully we see some stuff like get some mismatches with the tight ends. I think Denbrock's going to try to do that in this game. And I just think we're going to see a ton of Riley Leonard. They're going to run Leonard so hard in this one. It's going to be, which is again, to the point of them saying like, they got to hit him. Like, you got to try to mitigate his ability to run the ball because that's killed them in the past. Milroe killed him. Haynes King killed him. Jackson Dart, he was injured in that game and he still got off 50 yards on 7 carries, right? Like, it's important for Georgia to stop him specifically. Because he's like, look, he's the engine, right? Georgia lost their engine and they want to make Notre Dame lose theirs as well. I think that's a good place to end it, Jamie. We'll be back on Monday. So Monday we'll be back with Mike on Power Hour. So Mike and Jamie will do Power Hour on Monday. Jamie and I will do so that'll be like a preview, right? That'll be a heavy talk. Jamie and I will do another preview on Tuesday leading up to the game on New Year's Eve. And then we'll have the game on Wednesday. And we'll have a post-game show after that. So that's the schedule. Look out for us there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going to go live again. We'll be back on Monday with Mike on Power Hour. So have a good rest of your day, everyone. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the bowl games. Some fun bowl games taking place over the next few days leading up to January 1st. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So, yeah, we'll talk to you in a couple of days. Keep hitting and hustling.